There are a few ways that you could find out what's going on at NAB 2016 here in Las Vegas. You could walk the show floor and talk to every vendor. You could maybe speak to one of the NAB execs and find out what they've seen. Or you could go to Panasonic, one of the biggies here at the show. They've always got their fingers on the pulse of the broadcast world. And I am here speaking with Steve Cooperman. He is the Senior Product Manager at Panasonic, who's going to do just that, share the knowledge about NAB. Steve, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, the first thing we do have to mention is this booth that LiveU has created for us is loaded with Panasonic gear. So not only do we have the two big stand-up cameras on our tripods, but anyone's been watching has seen Brian, the Cranky Hippo Burnett, do some fancy footwork with your PTZs. What are these?
Yeah, these are awesome. Yeah, mounted up above and to the side, we have our AW-HE130s. And as our advertising said, these are the best, literally the best PTZs out there. For years, we've been incredibly successful at Panasonic with integrated pan-tilt zooms for education, for corporate environments, for house of worship, for many different markets. But what we've noticed in the last couple of years or so is that we have very high quality video, and then when we came out with the HE130 about a year ago, it stepped it up even further. So more and more customers are taking advantage of that technology for live events such as this, concerts, news production, sports, mounting cameras on dugouts. Reality television is a really big thing as well for these cameras. And not only are they video cameras, but also like on your laptop next to you, they provide the ability to stream back to a laptop or a tablet or a mobile device for viewing of the content, almost like somebody might do in a security environment, but in a true professional production type environment.
We did get a chance to play with some PTZs when we first set up the studio, and they weren't Panasonic. They told us that they were really, really good, and they ended up not being what we wanted. The resolution was never quite there. There was a bit too much lag in the control channel, and I couldn't see myself using that PTZ day in and day out. Yep. But our engineers here have been incredibly impressed with the force multiplying effect that you get with a PTZ. It's a different environment in which we live, and you have smaller crews, and the ability to change our angles on 3 of our cameras at any given time, it's huge for us. I would assume that's the market you're going for. You're going for, again, the house of worship or the smaller studio that wants a camera that can actually act like 3 or 4 different cameras.
Well, there's that, but again, like I said, reality television, some of these shows could have 40, 50, 60 cameras lined up in different places. Sometimes they're covered by rocks, they're outside or they're integrated into the sets. Meeting rooms, meeting rooms is a traditional thing where there's, many different pan-tilt zoom cameras in that particular marketplace. But when you think about it, and you mentioned some of these things, you don't just need the quality, but you want to have a smooth zoom when you have an operator operating it, or it'll be juddery. So those are some of the key things. What we've done in the last couple of years as well is we've integrated with streaming right from the camera to go across networks, working with some companies like Wowza that have a platform to deliver it across those networks. Or here at the show, which is, you mentioned LiveU, obviously, it's pretty cool. We're all of the outputs of these various cameras, whether there are P2 shoulder mount cameras or there are integrated PTZs like the HE130, are going to the new tech and then being outputted to the LiveU, the LU700. And that's obviously another new awesome workflow where they're encoding this, and we are in the field right now, even though we're at NAB, and encoding that LiveU, encoding that content, and sending it off through the bonded cellular system to send it through the network. So it is an awesome new unique workflow, and I think up to this point, and the LiveU guys obviously are the experts there, but that was being used more for those ENG news kind of crews. Right. But now you could see with the PTZs, it's being used more for live productions and different sort of productions. So it opens up a lot of unique production opportunities for our customers.
Well, it is a whole new world, even for an organization like TWiT that grew up on the internet and grew up using less expensive equipment. The ability to walk into a space, maybe set up 3 PTZ cameras, have the new tech and have the LiveU, and have an instant on-location studio that has every bit the quality of the studio we have back in San Francisco.
Yep.
It's different. It's different.
High mobility, high quality.
Yeah. All right, now let's talk a little bit about some of the news items that maybe our audience don't hear too much because they're used to hearing about the prosumer side and the consumer side. If we walk over to the Panasonic booth, it is an NAB dreamland. You've got everything from these PTZ cameras to the handhelds all the way up to the broadcast quality and the cinema quality cameras. Tell me a little bit about what Panasonic has developed over the last year.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And so what we've been talking about right now is basically 1/3 of our booth, the PTZ systems, part of our IP streaming workflow. On the opposite side of the booth is our cinema. And Panasonic for years has been, highly successful in the market, again, of AV cameras, E&G cameras, broadcast news. Cinema, about a year and a half ago, we released the VariCam 35, which is a revolutionary camera, 4K native camera, with a unique technology, a dual ISO technology, which literally enables the camera to almost operate as if it has two film stocks. Back in February in Hollywood, we introduced the VariCam LT, somewhat smaller camera, which is, again, it's a native 4K camera sharing the same Super 35mm sensor as the VariCam 35, but smaller size, lighter weight, lower price point. And we started shipping it last month. Now here at NAB, we have tremendous interest in the VariCam LT. I'm hearing it from everyone. We did something we've never done before. We have a 4K theater in our booth where we have video that was shot on either the VariCam 35 or the LT, more of cinematic or episodic television type content, generally acquired in 4K. But we have that, and in the last 3 days, last 2 days, now we're on day 3, we've been, you can see I've been here for a while. We've had ASC, American Cinematography Society DPs there, presenting their works and discussing it. Guys like Roberto Schaefer and Frank Princey and Michael Fitzmaurice today and Dejan Djordjevic yesterday, but major DPs showing their work, discussing it, which has been bringing in many people to look at the content. So it's been very, very exciting. Been a good show so far. Very, very busy show.
We like busy shows. Busy shows means we get more toys to look at.
Yes.
Steve, I want to ask you a question that I think you are in a unique position to answer.
Hopefully.
Because Panasonic has such a large offering, because you have so many products in so many different areas, you get a view of the industry that you won't get at a startup or a smaller booth that maybe does one thing really, really well. What are the trends that you've seen this year? Where is NAB taking us? So if you go back to the boardroom after the show and they ask you, what should we be developing for 2017? What would you say?
Wow. Well, in terms of trends, and that's what's interesting, is we're dealing in multiple parts of the industry. But just what I was discussing in cinema, obviously there's a huge increase in interest in 4K. Whether customers are utilizing it today, they want to make sure that they're sitting. If you're shooting video for a movie or television, unless you're incredibly rich or that's just a hobby, generally speaking, that's your job, and your content is your money, and you want to make sure that you can make money off of it this year with your current deliverable as well as next year. So 4K clearly, even if you shoot 4K today, deliver 2K, you could master it in 4K tomorrow. HDR, high dynamic range content, that was a big buzzword at the CES show about 3 months ago, and now more and more customers are talking to us about that. Interestingly enough, cameras like the VariCam, because they have 14.5 stops of dynamic range, our standard, where you're shooting your content, it already is HDR. You got to go back and remaster it. But so they're talking about that. So obviously, downstream, in the future, more products that support that amount of range, more complementary workflow products. Sometimes they want smaller cameras. It's a tough conundrum that customers always want smaller. Smaller, less expensive. And like with the VariCam LT, but obviously at Panasonic, quality is really important. So when we're talking with our Japanese and U.S. engineering team and executives, that's some of the things that are coming up, and finding ways to make new and unique technologies that are smaller and more mobile without skimping on technology. Other trends you mentioned here at the beginning is clearly mobile production, utilization of integrated pan tilt zooms for remote production or for smaller production crews, which interestingly enough has led to just an enormous increase in production. Maybe the crews are smaller, but there's not less production, there's incredibly more production. Clearly taking advantage of common, mobile devices or the technologies such as, 4G streaming, 4G LTE, or, live views, obviously, taking advantage of bonded cellular to transmit a file-based content, or in the case of our own PTZs, sometimes you're just streaming directly from the device. So more of that. Studio cameras, we have 2 new studio cameras at NAB. One of them is 4K, the AW-HE130 4K studio camera. Interestingly enough, it shows a new trend where even though it's 4K and it's high resolution, generally speaking, people that are using 4K are using cinema kind of lenses, being that this is studio and for more of a broadcast, shooting sport, shooting concerts, it utilizes a 2/3 inch zoom type lenses, and which is pretty cool. So you get the high resolution, but you get the kind of zoom lens that you would be traditionally used to using in the field. So that's a new trend that we're seeing more of, and we've had incredible interest in our new 4K as well as our HC5000 1080 240 frame a second overcrank HD studio camera, again for that part of the marketplace.
Very concise and very complete. Thank you. I mean, that should be the cheat sheet for anyone who maybe wasn't able to come to NAB. That's an incredibly good list of what was covered here at the show. We've been speaking with Steve Cooperman, Senior Product Manager at Panasonic. He has been taking us through some of the offerings that Panasonic has here at NAB 2016. Steve, if they wanted to find out more about what you did at NAB, more about what Panasonic has brought to all fields of broadcast, where should they go?
Let's see, our main website is www.panasonic.com/broadcast. That's where they could see the various products, and off of there we have an NAB site as well.